Hello, and thank you for joining me for Chapter 17 of Last of the Name by Roseanne Perry. And it starts with a clipping from the New York Herald. The impending battlefield. Sense of the present movements and operations of the contending armies. The whole way home, I am bursting with the news about my audition. A real contract. $1 a show. It'll be the making of us. I scramble back into the dress and run for the back door, still tying on my apron. Kathleen is not in the kitchen. I snatch the usual afternoon roll from the cooling rack and get the usual whack on the ear from Cook's wooden spoon. I dash up the stairs before Cook has even begun her lengthy description of my poor character and dodgy prospects. Kathleen isn't in the parlor or the music room or the study or the dining room. I finally find her at the top of the house, stripped down to her slip and sweating like a racehorse as she hems and tucks and fusses over the peach-colored satin dress Mrs. Treadwell finally proclaimed adequate for the soiree. I know better than to fret her with my news. I grab a spare needle and we work silently side by side until it's too dark to see the stitches. Saturday is hotter. Kathleen's already up and working when I wake at sunrise. A wagon load of food is delivered and Cook throws half of it out for spoilage. She sends for the iceman, but he doesn't come. She sends Reeve after more groceries, and he's gone for hours. The entire block can hear Mrs. Treadwell yelling at the piano tuner. It's hours past lunch when I finally catch Kathleen on the back stairs. I have news. It's important. It can wait, she says grimly, putting one exhausted foot in front of the other. It's good news, I call her after she disappears upstairs. I head out into the back to take laundry off the line just in time to see Alice from across the alley slip out of her gate. I don't blame her one bit. They're drawing names for the draft again. She has 4 brothers in that big wooden drum and a father already on the battlefield. Eliza watches her go and, without a word, grabs her cane and hobbles over to the yard across the way to fold her laundry. I finish hanging up mine and join her. Bridget, from the other side, brings over a jam jar full of cornflowers. Eliza kisses her on the cheek. There's nothing to say. We've all lost brothers. We thought that America would be the end of war for us, not the beginning. Sunday is even hotter still. I watered Cook's prized lettuces in the kitchen garden twice yesterday, and they are flat in the dirt this morning to spite me. Mrs. Treadwell fumes as we go off to church, but Kathleen resolutely marches me out the back door. There isn't a speck of breeze or cooling dew. The pavement is still hot from yesterday. I take note of the weary set of Kathleen's shoulders. She needs good news. Do you remember how Mother Hildegard said we should keep looking for a better job? I began. I do. We are walking past the cathedral construction site, and more than a dozen women are swarming over the site, collecting scraps of stone in their aprons. It's odd. Children scavenge in the streets for coal all the time. I never see women doing it. And why would they need stones? I've found a job, a good job with a decent employer. I glance at Kathleen sidelong and decide that in this mood of hers a little buttering up is in order. Naturally, I told him I couldn't consent to a job without my mother's blessing. I beam a great smile at her. Did you now? She answers, without even looking at me. A cluster of men across the way have caught her eye. They have a city map among them and are arguing about where the police have their stations and which is the closest armory and what kind of guns are inside it. We round the corner only to find the barber shop open and packed with men. Only this time, it's not the barber singing. In fact, Mateo is nowhere in sight. It's a tall and sunburned Irishman with a blackthorn stick in his hand singing out, "By the rising of the moon," the old call to arms. It tells the story of the Battle of 98, the one that took Da's grandpa and all of his uncles in one day. Now come tell me, Sean O'Farrell, where the gathering is to be. At the old spot by the river, quite well known to you and me. One more word for signal token, whistle up the marching tune. With your pike upon your shoulder at the rising of the moon. Bottles pass among the singing men. They are gray-haired, the lot of them, already given up a son or two to the Irish Brigade. Maybe lost a son or two back in Ireland. And here comes Lincoln, hunting after more of their sons. They've got the green flag with the gold harp, the standard of the Irish Brigade, draped over the mirror. A fellow reaches out to stroke the tattered fringe at the flag's edge as you'd stroke the cheek of a child. It's proud they are of their boys, even in their grief. More men join in on the following verses. It becomes more of a shouting session than a song. All along that singing river, that great mass of men was seen. High above their shining weapons flew their own beloved green. Death to every foe and traitor, whistle up the marching tune. And hurrah me, boys, for freedom, 'tis the rising of the moon. The leader of the song circles the singing men back to the beginning, leaving out the last verse, the one my father could never sing without a tear in his eye. And they fought for poor old Ireland, and full bitter was their fate. Oh, what glorious pride and sorrow fills the names of 98. Yet thank God e'en still our beating hearts and manhood burning noon, who would follow in their footsteps at the rising of the moon. Drinking at this hour, Kathleen says in disgust. She pulls me along, and I feel the shaking of her hands. A few blocks farther, and it's a group of women clustered around a newspaper. Look, it says right here you can buy your way out of the draft for $300, a woman with a baby in her arms says. As if there's a one of us with ready cash in such amounts, chimes in another. Why, that's a year's wage. The disgrace of it, a third woman shouts. $300! A slave is worth 1,000. Who is this Lincoln to count our lives so cheaply? They'll take our vote next. See if they don't. Black men can't vote, but they're worth 1,000. Who would give a vote to a man only worth 300? Kathleen hustles me into church, but it's not better inside. I hear whispers all down the pew. Such a cloud of discontent is over the parish that only a few stragglers come out to the dinner downstairs afterward. Mother Hildegard presides over the food. She takes a whole loaf of the soda bread and wraps it in a cloth. Take this now and get thee indoors, she says. It's not a fit day for young ones to be abroad in the street. Out on the church steps, I try to get Kathleen to sit down and listen to me. She's not having it. Not after Mother Hildegard's warning. All my best pleading sheets off of her like rain. At first, I drag behind her on the way uptown, but then clouds roll in, thick and black. I look for the relief of rain, but there is not one breath of wind. The street corners are silent now, and the barber shop empty. I see a black man flit from one shadowy alley to the next, a traveling bag in his hand. A block farther on, and I see a whole black family running toward the railway station just as the cars pull in. The entire train is full of black families, ducking down so they won't be seen from the windows and traveling in complete silence. Clouds cover the city like the lid of a pot. I feel a flash of sympathy for lobsters. The farther north we go, the more we see homes of the wealthy with windows boarded over as you would for a great storm. I see men with rifles on rooftops. The last bits of blue sky vanish, and an eerie yellow light falls over the streets. Hanging weather, Granny used to call it. I never asked her why. And we will see what comes of it next time in Chapter 18.